The winds of Novus Prime howled across the frozen wastes, carrying ice crystals that sparkled like diamond dust in the pale light of the binary stars overhead. Dr. Isabella Warner adjusted her thermal suit settings, watching as her breath created small clouds in the protective field around her face. The planet's atmosphere was breathable, technically, but at -40 degrees Celsius, breathing unfiltered air was asking for frozen lungs. "Base, this is Warner." Completing final survey of grid section K7, she reported into her comm unit. "Still no signs of those energy signatures we detected last week." The response came back garbled through the storm's interference, but she caught enough to know they'd acknowledged her transmission. Isabella hadn't come to this frozen frontier for routine surveys. As one of Earth's leading xenobiologists, she'd been drawn to Novus Prime by the unusual readings their orbital satellites had picked up, organic patterns that didn't match anything in their databases. 6 months of searching had yielded nothing but frost and frustration. The scanner at her belt chirped, drawing her attention to a narrow ravine she might have missed otherwise. The walls were smooth, too smooth to be natural, with geometric patterns barely visible beneath centuries of ice buildup. Her heart rate quickened as she approached, running her gloved hand along the surface. The pattern seemed to pulse with a faint luminescence at her touch. "Base, I'm detecting structural elements consistent with artificial construction. Requesting permission to investigate further." This time, there was no response at all, just the endless howl of the wind. Isabella checked her position, she was still within the safe zone, if barely. Following protocol would mean marking the location and returning with a full team. A flicker of light deeper in the ravine made the decision for her. It was brief, but unmistakable, a flash of blue-green bioluminescence that didn't match any of the simple organisms they'd catalogued on Novus Prime. Isabella activated her suit's recording systems and began her descent into the ravine. The passage twisted downward, eventually opening into a vast chamber that took her breath away. Massive crystals jutted from the walls, each one humming with its own internal light. But it was what lay in the center that made her stop dead in her tracks. Curled among the crystals was a creature that defied everything she knew about xenobiology. It resembled Earth's mythical dragons in basic form, but its body seemed to flow between solid and energy states. Crystalline scales shifted and rippled like aurora borealis, and what appeared to be wings were actually sheets of pure light folded against its body. The creature was easily twice her length, and even in what appeared to be an unconscious state, it radiated an aura of ancient intelligence. Isabella's scientific training warred with her instincts as she approached. The creature was clearly injured, dark patches in its crystalline hide pulsed with an unhealthy rhythm, and several of its light wings had tears that sparked and flickered erratically. Her scanner showed readings that made no sense, biological and technological signatures so intertwined she couldn't tell where one ended and the other began. As she drew closer, the creature's eyes snapped open, swirling pools of golden light that fixed on her with unmistakable intelligence. Isabella froze, her heart pounding. The being made no aggressive move, instead emanating a series of harmonic tones that she felt more than heard, vibrating through her bones. "I'm not here to harm you," she said softly, knowing her words probably meant nothing but hoping her tone would convey her intent. She slowly reached for her medical kit, keeping her movements deliberate and calm. The creature's eyes tracked her movements, but its posture remained non-threatening. To her amazement, the being's crystalline structure shifted, creating what appeared to be a visual language in patterns of light and color. Her suit's computer began analyzing the patterns immediately, picking up mathematical consistencies that suggested this was no random display. Isabella's hands shook slightly as she prepared a universal cellular regenerator. It might not work on the creature's unique biology, but it was the best she had. As she approached with the device, the being's light patterns changed, becoming more ordered. The computer's analysis flashed a startling conclusion across her heads-up display, prime numbers, being counted out in sequence. "You're trying to communicate," she breathed. "You're not just intelligent, you're technological." The creature's response was to extend one of its injured wings toward her, the tears in its light structure more visible up close. Isabella swallowed hard and activated the regenerator. The effect was immediate and unexpected. Where the healing beam touched the wing, the creature's crystalline structure began to resonate, amplifying and modifying the regenerator's effect. The torn light began to reweave itself, but more importantly, patterns of light and energy began flowing between the creature and her medical device. Through her suit's sensors, Isabella watched in awe as the being seemed to analyze and understand the technology she was using, then improve upon it in real time. The healing process accelerated, and the creature's own bioluminescence grew stronger. Then something even more extraordinary happened. The geometric patterns on the chamber's walls began to glow in response to the creature's recovery, and Isabella realized with a start that what she had thought was just an ice cave was actually something far more significant. The walls weren't just decorated, they were covered in the same kind of biotechnological integration she was observing in the creature. As the final tears in the being's wings sealed themselves, it rose to its full height, its crystalline form towering over her. But instead of feeling fear, Isabella felt a sense of profound discovery. The creature extended its now healed wing toward her again, this time creating a complex pattern of light that her suit translated into a simple but world-changing message. "We have waited long for your return, Starborn." The cave's hidden systems continued to activate around them, and Isabella knew that her discovery in this frozen ravine was about to change humanity's understanding of not just alien life, but of their own history among the stars. Isabella stood transfixed as patterns of light cascaded across the chamber walls, each pulse revealing more of what had been hidden beneath millennia of ice. The crystalline being, who had communicated that its name was Valaris through a complex series of light patterns, moved with fluid grace despite its massive size, touching various points on the walls that responded to its presence. "Starborn," she repeated, her scientific mind racing to process the implications. "You're saying humans have been here before? Long before our recorded history?" Valaris's response came in waves of light that her suit's computer was becoming increasingly adept at translating. The pattern suggested not just presence, but purpose. Humanity hadn't simply visited this world, they had helped build it. The chamber floor suddenly illuminated, revealing intricate circuitry patterns that spread like frozen lightning through the ice. A holographic display materialized in the center of the room, showing a star map that made Isabella's breath catch. It depicted Earth, but surrounded by a network of worlds and structures that didn't exist in any modern star chart. "This can't be possible," she whispered. "Our earliest space exploration only began a few centuries ago." Valaris's crystalline form shifted, creating what appeared to be a three-dimensional historical record. Isabella watched in amazement as images formed in the air between them, humans working alongside beings of pure energy, of crystal, of forms she could barely comprehend. They were building something together, not just cities or ships, but an entire civilization that spanned the stars. The sound of distant explosions shattered the moment. Valaris's form tensed, its luminescence dimming to a cautionary glow. Isabella's comm unit crackled to life, finally breaking through the interference. "Dr. Warner." The voice belonged to Director Rains, her supposed superior at the research base. "We've detected unauthorized mining operations in your sector. Clear the area immediately." Isabella's hand instinctively went to the comm switch, but Valaris moved with surprising speed, extending a wing to stop her. The being's light patterns became urgent, warning. Through their developing communication, she understood, the mining operations were no accident. Someone had been looking for this place. As if confirming her fears, heavy drilling sounds echoed through the ice above. Valaris touched another section of wall, revealing a hidden passage that descended deeper into the planet. The creature's intentions were clear, they needed to move, now. "Director," Isabella responded carefully, "I'm experiencing some equipment issues. May need to find shelter until the storm passes." She didn't wait for a response before switching off her comm unit completely. The decision to follow Valaris into the unknown depths should have felt more difficult. Everything in her training screamed against going dark during a planetary expedition. But as another explosion rocked the chamber above, Isabella realized she trusted this ancient being more than whatever forces were so desperately trying to breach this place. The hidden passage led them through a network of tunnels that seemed to pulse with the same biotechnological integration she'd observed in Valaris. As they descended, the temperature actually began to rise, and the ice gave way to surfaces that looked more like living crystal. "This is all active technology, isn't it?" she asked, running her hand along a wall that hummed with energy. "Not just ruins, but a functioning system." Valaris confirmed with a pattern that translated to both yes and finally awakening. The being paused at an intersection, its form illuminating a vast space beyond. Isabella stepped through and found herself in what could only be described as a control center, though unlike any she'd ever seen. The chamber was circular, with crystalline growths that served as both organic and technological interfaces. Holographic displays sprang to life around them, showing the status of systems that extended far beyond this single facility. But what caught Isabella's attention was the central pillar, a structure that seemed to be composed of pure light, contained within a crystalline matrix. Valaris approached the pillar, its own crystalline form resonating with the structure. Images began to form in the light, Earth's ancient past, but not as any historian had ever imagined it. She saw humans mastering technologies that merged the organic and the artificial, achieving harmony with the natural world while reaching for the stars. "We were your guardians," Valaris communicated, the translation becoming clearer as their systems synchronized. "When the great darkness came, your people chose to forget, to start again. We were left to watch, to wait, to preserve what was built." Before Isabella could process this revelation, a new set of explosions, much closer now, shook the chamber. Valaris's form tensed again, its patterns shifting to what she now recognized as combat readiness. The being was preparing to defend this place, to defend humanity's forgotten legacy. "Dr. Warner." A new voice echoed through the tunnels, accompanied by the sound of approaching footsteps. "This is Dominic Thrain, Special Operations. We know you're down there with the artifact. The situation is more complex than you understand." Isabella looked at Valaris, whose light patterns had become both defensive and protective. She realized she stood at a crossroads, not just in this moment, but in human history. Whatever came through that tunnel entrance would determine whether humanity's true heritage would be remembered or lost again. The crystalline systems around them continued to activate, responding to some protocol established ages ago. Isabella made her decision. She stepped forward, placing her hand on one of the crystal interfaces. To her amazement, it responded to her touch, recognizing something in her at a genetic level. She wasn't just discovering humanity's past, she was being recognized as its inheritor. Valaris's approval radiated in waves of golden light as the chamber's defenses came online. Whatever remained of humanity's ancient legacy, Isabella knew with sudden certainty that she would defend it. The footsteps grew closer, and she prepared to face whatever emerged from the tunnel, not as a simple xenobiologist anymore, but as a guardian of a truth that could reshape human destiny. The real question now wasn't just about survival, but about what they would do with this knowledge once the immediate threat was dealt with. Humanity's true history lay waiting in these crystals, and Isabella Warner found herself at the center of its reawakening. The crystal chamber thrummed with ancient power as footsteps echoed through the approaching tunnel. Isabella's hand remained steady on the interface, feeling the pulse of technologies that seemed to flow between organic and artificial states. Beside her, Valaris's crystalline form cast prismatic patterns across the walls, a silent language of preparation. The first figure that emerged from the tunnel wasn't what Isabella expected. Rather than the heavily armed corporate mercenary she'd anticipated, a woman in a simple research uniform stepped into view. Dr. Renata Torres, the quantum physicist who'd recently joined their base team, held her hands up in a peaceful gesture. "Isabella," Renata called out, her voice carrying a note of urgency, "you need to step away from those controls. What you've awakened, it's beyond anything we're ready to handle. More figures emerged behind her, these ones matching Isabella's original expectations. Armed guards in corporate tactical gear, their weapons trained on both her and Valaris. The company logo on their armor belonged to Stellar Dynamics, one of Earth's largest private space exploration firms. The Crystal Dragon was just the beginning, Renata continued, taking another careful step forward. These facilities exist on dozens of worlds. We've been studying them for years, trying to understand what happened to that ancient human civilization. Why they disappeared. What they were running from. Valaris's light patterns shifted rapidly, and Isabella's suit translated a warning: the darkness they speak of, it was not external. It came from within. Understanding dawned as Isabella processed the implications. "You're not here to study this place," she said to Renata. "You're here to weaponize it." The physicist's expression confirmed everything. "Think of the possibilities, Isabella. These beings merged biology and technology in ways we can barely comprehend. The medical applications alone would be nothing compared to the military ones," Isabella finished. "That's what Stellar Dynamics really wants, isn't it? An army of crystal warriors, ships grown instead of built, weapons that blur the line between living and machine." The chamber's systems responded to her rising emotion, the crystalline interfaces pulsing with deeper hues. Valaris moved closer, its massive form somehow managing to appear both protective and sad. Through their strengthening connection, Isabella received not just words but images, memories of the last time humans had tried to push this technology too far. The ancient humans didn't disappear, she realized aloud. They didn't run from anything. They chose to start over because they saw where they were heading. They understood the responsibility that came with this power, and they weren't ready for it. Renata's face hardened. "And you think you are one xenobiologist who happened to stumble into this facility?" "Step aside, Isabella. Let people who understand the bigger picture handle this." "The bigger picture is exactly what I'm seeing," Isabella replied. She felt Valaris's approval as the chamber's systems continued to interface with her at a genetic level. These beings weren't meant to be weapons. They're guardians, teachers, waiting for us to be ready to remember who we were. Who we could be. The armed guards tensed as energy began flowing more visibly through the chamber's crystalline networks. Valaris's form shifted, its wings of light extending to create barriers of pure energy between Isabella and the intruders. But it wasn't an aggressive display, the patterns translated as an offering, a choice. "Last chance," Renata warned. "Corporate security is already securing the surface facility. In a few hours, this whole place will be under Stellar Dynamics control. You can't stop what's coming." Isabella smiled. "I don't have to stop it. I just have to remember it." She pressed her palm fully against the central crystal, and the chamber exploded with light. The activation cascaded through the facility's systems like a wave of conscious energy. Holographic displays sprang to life, showing not just this facility but others, dozens of them, scattered across the galaxy, all beginning to awaken. Through her connection to the interface, Isabella felt the stirring of ancient protocols, of safeguards put in place by those long-ago humans who had understood the price of power without wisdom. Valaris's consciousness touched her mind directly now, sharing knowledge that mere language could never convey. Isabella saw the truth of humanity's past, not a simple story of rise and fall, but a conscious choice to step back, to leave guardians who would help them find a better path when they were ready to walk it again. The armed guards' weapons suddenly powered down, their advanced technology no match for systems that had evolved beyond the need for destructive force. Renata stared in disbelief as her tablet devices went dark, all attempts to access or control the facility's systems blocked by protocols older than human civilization. "What have you done?" she whispered. "Not me," Isabella replied, watching as the chamber's crystals began to sing with harmonies that seemed to reach across space itself. "Our ancestors did this. They left us a choice, not between remembering and forgetting, but between power and understanding. They hoped we'd choose better the second time around. Valaris's form blazed with approval as more systems activated throughout the facility. Through their shared connection, Isabella understood what was happening. Similar facilities across the galaxy were awakening, responding to humanity's first steps toward reclaiming their legacy. But this time, they would have guides, teachers, guardians to help them avoid the mistakes of the past. The armed guards backed away as more crystalline beings began to materialize in the chamber, not through any aggressive display of force, but through the simple awakening of what had always been there, waiting. Each one carried a piece of humanity's story, a fragment of the wisdom their ancestors had hoped to preserve. Isabella turned to Renata and the corporate forces, seeing not enemies but the very proof of why their ancestors had chosen to start over. "You have a choice now," she said. "You can fight against this awakening, try to control what was never meant to be controlled. Or you can help us understand it, help humanity remember not just what we were capable of, but why we chose to forget." The chamber hummed with potential as everyone present faced the same decision humanity had faced eons ago. But this time, they had the benefit of guardians who had watched, waited, and preserved the wisdom of ages. The real journey was just beginning. The next few hours unfolded like a dream crystallized in time. Isabella watched as more of humanity's forgotten guardians emerged from their ancient slumber, each one a unique fusion of crystalline matter and living light. Through her deepening connection with Valaris, she began to understand the true scope of what their ancestors had built, and what they had chosen to leave behind. "Director Rains won't stay quiet about this," Renata warned, having chosen to stay after the corporate security teams retreated. She stood before a holographic display showing the facility's surface entrance, where stellar dynamics forces were attempting to establish a containment perimeter. "Once word gets back to Earth about what's down here." "It already has," Isabella replied, watching as the facility's communications array picked up transmissions from orbit. "Look." The holographic display shifted to show multiple ships entering the system, not just corporate vessels, but ships bearing the emblems of Earth's major nations and scientific institutions. News of the discovery was spreading faster than anyone could contain it. Valaris's light patterns shifted in what Isabella now recognized as concern. "They come seeking different things," the being communicated. "Some seek wisdom. Others, weapons. The choice comes again." Through their connection, Isabella saw flashes of the past, the last time humanity had reached this crossroads. The crystal beings had been created as partners, guides to help humans explore the stars. But some had sought to use them as weapons, to twist the harmony between organic and technological into tools of dominance. The chamber shuddered as something heavy landed on the surface. Military dropships, according to the facility's sensors. The next few minutes would determine whether history would repeat itself. "Show me," Isabella said to Valaris. "Show me everything." The crystalline guardian's form expanded, its light encompassing the entire chamber. The other crystal beings joined, their combined consciousness creating an immersive historical record that took Isabella's breath away. She saw Earth as it had been, a world where technology had evolved alongside nature rather than in opposition to it. Cities grown rather than built, ships that were living beings as much as vessels, humans who had learned to exist in harmony with the universe rather than trying to conquer it. But she also saw the temptation that had led to their fall, the desire to use that harmony as a weapon, to enforce peace through power. The crystal beings had been created to help humanity explore and understand the cosmos, but some had tried to turn them into weapons of war. "Our creators faced a choice," Valaris shared. "Continue down that path of power, or step back. Begin again." They chose wisdom over dominance, knowing it would mean millennia of technological regression. They left us to wait, to watch, to preserve their knowledge until humanity was ready to choose differently. The facility's defenses activated automatically as the first teams began attempting to breach the lower levels. But instead of weapons, they encountered barriers of pure light, fields that simply redirected their efforts, turned aside their weapons without harming them. That's why the defensive systems aren't lethal, Isabella realized. They're not meant to destroy, but to teach. Renata stepped forward, her scientific curiosity finally overcoming her corporate loyalties. The crystalline structure, the integration of organic and technological components, it's all based on principles of harmony rather than dominance. We've been approaching it all wrong. More memories flowed through Isabella's connection with the crystal beings, humans and guardians working together to seed the galaxy with these facilities, creating a network of wisdom that would wait for humanity's return. Not as conquerors, but as students ready to learn from their own forgotten past. The chamber's communications array suddenly activated, projecting the image of Admiral Helena Reyes of the Earth Science Fleet. Her expression was stern but thoughtful as she took in the scene before her. "Dr. Warner," she said, "I have 12 ships in orbit and orders to secure this facility for Earth's combined scientific institutions. But what we're seeing, these readings suggest technology far beyond anything we've encountered. What am I really looking at here?" Isabella glanced at Valaris, who nodded encouragingly. This was the moment their ancestors had prepared for, humanity's first real choice about how to handle their rediscovered legacy. "Admiral," Isabella replied, "you're looking at a crossroads. These beings, this facility, they're not prizes to be won or weapons to be controlled. They're teachers, left behind by our own ancestors who understood something we need to remember: true power comes from harmony, not control." As if in response to her words, the crystal beings began to sing. It was a sound that defied conventional physics, a harmony that seemed to resonate with the fabric of spacetime itself. The facility's systems amplified it, sending it not just to the ships in orbit but to every awakening facility across the galaxy. Through their shared connection, Isabella felt Valaris's approval. This was what the Guardians had waited for, not just someone who could activate the ancient systems, but someone who understood why they had been preserved in the first place. "The question isn't whether we take control of this facility," Isabella continued, addressing not just the Admiral but everyone listening across the various channels. "The question is whether we're ready to learn from it. Our ancestors left us a choice between power and wisdom. They hoped we'd choose differently this time." The chamber hummed with potential as humanity stood once again at the threshold of their forgotten legacy. But this time, they had guides to help them remember not just what they had been, but what they could become. The real test was just beginning.